is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering Doctor Who, Season 2, Episode 6, The Rise of the Cyberman. In this episode, I have to say that I liked this episode much more than I expected to from the opening 5 minutes. That opening 5 minutes was real rough, y'all. It was really, really rough. Barty Crouch is here. Welcome. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Natasha.
And I am Jamie.
And so Barty Crouch's dad and Barty Crouch Jr. are both on this show.
Can I say something really, really embarrassing?
Please.
I knew this was Barty Crouch, but it never clicked to me that it was Barty Crouch and Barty Crouch Jr.
Really?
Probably because I choose to ignore that Barty Crouch Jr. was ever a thing because I love David Tennant and that was the worst thing that ever happened. But, yeah, until you posted something about it today, I was like, oh my God, what is the matter with me?
Yeah, like the second I saw him, I was like, oh God. Like, and it wasn't even an, oh God, this is Barty Crouch Sr. It was an, oh God, I remember this guy from something and he was real bad. And it took me a second to be like, oh right, Barty Crouch. And yeah, he's just like making the same kind of inexplicable choices as an actor in this episode that he made as Barty Crouch as well. Where they have him be sort of like, even before, because, you know, eventually, spoilers for Harry Potter, Barty Crouch is supposed to be like under the Imperious Curse. And so he's acting erratically because of that. But even before that, he has this sort of like bumbling quality that the character in the books never ever had. And this dude is like, I'm going to be a maniac who wants everlasting life. But I'm going to take a leaf out of Giles's book and never blink. And act like I'm already like an android man, basically. And I don't really get what he's doing there with that.
Yeah, I don't really have any explanation for you. I also don't remember his performance in Goblet of Fire. I would like to, I think my brain has blocked out most of that movie.
Honestly, good.
Except for the Fred and George parts. Everything else doesn't matter.
Yeah, he was one of those that when I saw like the casting photos, I was like, oh sweet, okay, yeah, that's definitely Barty Crouch Sr. And then once I saw him in action, I was like, what the fuck is this? No.
Well, I think we have to blame the director for a lot of this.
I agree.
For that movie, if we're gonna be honest, because nobody really gave good performances in that movie.
Well, I also want to blame the director here, but I'm starting to be like, is this just this guy? I don't know.
It might be just this guy a little bit.
I haven't seen him in anything else that I can think of. So yeah, okay. So this episode starts off with this dude like Professor Xing it up in here, except like not in a compassionate, fun way, but in a like, I just want eternal life kind of way. Mm-hmm. I have to laugh at like later on, he's trying to convince the president to like allow this project. And the president, rightfully, is like, no. Like such a hard no that you should not even have wasted my time getting me here because you knew better. And his response is like, but you don't understand. I'm dying. And?
Yeah.
You know? Just
and
like,
everyone dies. That's what happens.
How it works. That's how it works. And we don't get to like see this thing either because he's like, it's a body that will never age or die. I envy it. But it's all like this figure that's really vague because it's backlit with these like huge spotlights. So we never really get to see them until they actually crash the party. And I feel like that was a really bad choice because they look dumb. So like the big reveal is treated as if like, oh, we're going to finally show you this thing. And it's like, maybe you just should have done it out of the gate, because I was kind of waiting thinking that there was going to be a surprise. Like it would turn out that they all look like David Hasselhoff or something weird, you know? But they just look like, you know, old-fashioned robot men from like a 1930s movie about Mars invaders or something.
The Cybermen are an old enemy of the Doctor's.
Are they?
Mm-hmm.
So
they're from the original series. And you have seen their heads before.
Oh, in that museum?
One of their heads. Yep.
Okay. Because, yeah, they did look like familiar. So why did they, like, make them all dim? Is it just because they're like, oh, well, we want to surprise everybody that we're bringing back an old enemy?
I mean, it would be hard to do that when the name of the episode is called Rise of the Cybermen.
Yeah, so why did they do it like this? Why,
I think
Jamie?
it was just for dramatic effect or something. You know, you see their feet, you hear that ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk noise that they make when they walk, and then there's just an army of them, and it's supposed to be very imposing and scary. The Doctor's very scared.
Can I just say...
You will be deleted.
That I love when I ask you something, and you explain it, and it's clear that you've run out of steam about 2 minutes into your explanation because you've decided that it doesn't really matter and you're not really that like into this explanation anyway, and I'm just gonna let it finish out here. Like, I just really kind of enjoy it because there's this sort of fatalism that seems to like take over at that point. Yeah,
I enjoy the Cybermen. Just like I enjoy the Daleks. I find them very funny. It's hard for me to be scared of any of this because they're so laughable. But I don't think that Doctor Who is necessarily a scary show. Even though the Doctor is scared and there's, you know, panic and, you know, they're electrocuting people or whatever, it's still like, you're like this giant sort of stiff robot thing. I don't know. It's hard to be scared. So trying to find a reason behind some of the stuff's like, well, it's a carryover from the old thing, and you know, they didn't have good effects back then.
The thing is that the show has succeeded in being deeply creepy a few times. So I feel like if that was what they were going for, to like really get across to us that these things are dangerous and something that the Doctor himself is afraid of, and, you know, a genuine threat, I feel like they could have pulled that off, because Lord knows they could have like updated their design, and it would make sense to update their design since it's some like new dude quasi inventing them. I don't know how he invented a thing that already exists, but whatever, it doesn't matter right now.
Yeah, and I don't really have an explanation for that, and it is a question that I kind of have that I hope that one of our Doctor Who scholars can fill in those blanks for me, because apparently these were something that were in the Doctor's universe, whatever that means. And this is a whole different universe that they've fallen into. So how this guy came up with this design, when like one of the things I read was that this is like the first episode of the new series that doesn't have an extraterrestrial presence other than the Doctor. But these were from another universe. And so how did this guy come up with this design when it's not extraterrestrial?
Right. Yeah,
and yet,
that's weird.
I'm very amused by this design. I like their faces.
Like, but think how creepy they could have been. Look at all the crazy masks in so many other episodes and how fucking unnerving they were. Like, just, even if you just like gave them fucking 1920s gas masks.
Yeah.
I mean, Lord knows that fucking scared me.
You're right. They definitely could have done a Cyberman thing, especially with it being like a different version of Cybermen, and made them have scarier faces instead of bringing back the teardrops, which apparently that's like a revival. The teardrops, little teardrop shapes around their eyes.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. Okay.
Oh, it's one of my favorite aspects of their faces is that it looks like they've got little teardrops on the corners of their eyes.
Like they killed somebody in prison.
Yeah. Kind of. But I guess at some point in the old series, they'd gotten rid of that sort of design and gone with just regular round eyes. And for this, they brought those back. And I was like, and that's the most interesting thing I think about how they look is those weird teardrops. But it's not scary. It's just kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed.
What was scarier than anything was those earbuds in everybody's ears.
Yes.
And when Jackie freezes and it like gets all of her thoughts.
Yeah.
And the little weird antenna thing goes above her head. I'm like, now that is scary. And maybe that's because we're letting people walk around with earbuds now.
Maybe it's because Google Glasses are already a thing that's like passé at this point.
I don't know. Every time I see somebody walking around with those little earbuds for the new iPhones, I'm like, this is what leads to Cybermen, though. You gotta stop.
Earpods. I love that they're called earpods, and the ones from Apple are called AirPods. Like,
see?
They
leads
knew.
to Cybermen. They're gonna steal your thoughts.
So we have him, and the opening. Guys, let me just fucking take the piss out of this for a second. I'm sorry, but let me do it. This opening scene is so bad, Jamie. He's like, look at what we have created. And he's got this fucking look in his, like I said, he's not blinking. He's for some reason, like, it looks like, I think he's supposed to be standing next to his assistant that he's talking to. But there's a weirdness in how it's shot that implies they're in different rooms at first. They're like the whole like setting of it is really strange. And then he's a skin of metal and slowly spins around and a body that will never age or die. And it's just like such cliche dialogue that it feels like he did come straight out of like a 1930s like, ooh, look, it's a movie instead of a talkie. Mark this day. We are blessed. And his assistant, well, we need Geneva's approval and yada, yada, yada. And he's like, well, they're not going to give it to me. And the guy's like, well, whether they do or not, I still have to tell them. How will you do that? From beyond the grave. And this fucking idiot just goes, I don't think I understand.
Right? Run, dude.
What do you mean you don't understand? This is not difficult. What do you mean? From beyond, you just said you were going to tell on some shit because it's your duty that he just clearly said he doesn't want you to tell. And then he's talking about your grave. Put the fucking pieces together, genius. You built an artificial man and you can't figure this out? Get the hell out of here. Good. I'm glad you're dead. Bye. And then it set sail for Great Britain and then credits.
There's that first line where the doctor, his name is Dr. Kendrick, says something and he says, no, it's alive.
Oh, yeah. He says it's working.
Right.
And Barty's like, working? That's not the word I would use. And he's like, you're right. It's alive. And I was like, ugh.
Yeah, so apparently they're like taking humans and turning them into these things?
Taking their brains. Yeah, they're RoboCopping them.
I never saw that.
What? Jamie co-host Smith. I don't know your middle name.
It's Lynn, like every other Jamie.
How have you not seen RoboCop? I'm pausing everything right now. You need to watch that fucking movie, Jamie. That is an excellent movie.
Is it actually?
It actually is. Like, I'm not even joking with you right now. That shit holds up like crazy. It holds up like the Alien movies. Like,
okay, well, that's a strong statement because
yes.
I think that first Alien movie is one of the best movies I've ever seen, and I only watched it for the first time like 5 years ago.
Girl, I watched the first RoboCop movie for the first time, like probably in 2012, 2010 maybe, And I was blown away. I was like, how have I not seen this? I don't understand how I went through my life with this movie not being in front of me all the time.
All right.
And the dad from that 70s show.
Yeah, I know he's in it.
Is the villain? And he's really good. And it's just really...
All right.
I was about to make
I'm
all
always
of these
a little
RoboCop
hesitant.
jokes throughout this episode, and now you're not going to get any of them, and now I don't even know what I'm going to do. I had all this material ready.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. It would have been worse if I had just not said anything and then didn't laugh at your jokes.
That's true. Because if I say, bitches, leave, and there's no context, it has a really different feel to it.
Yeah. I've always been afraid to see movies that people always talk about, like RoboCop, because a few of the times that I've been forced to watch movies that I hadn't seen, I'm always kind of like, yeah, all right, it's fine.
Yeah.
Like Highlander. Jason made me watch Highlander.
Oh,
and it was
God,
really important to
no.
him. And I was like, it's fine. It's an all right movie. I enjoyed it. Didn't blow me away. Sorry, guys.
Like, I know. I couldn't get through Highlander. I'll say that right now. Owen put it on. Is that the one where Sean Connery is Egyptian?
He's something, yeah, at the end.
Yeah, I was just not here for any of this.
Yeah, it was like that. And then, like, people were talking about Hudson Hawk. And so I finally sat down and watched Hudson Hawk. And after it was over, I was like, that was one of the worst things I've ever experienced in my life.
I don't even know what that is. I never heard of that one.
It's a Bruce Willis movie, and it's fucking terrible. And it's almost worth watching because it's so bad.
Ooh. Well,
but I can't even recommend it because it's so bad. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen. So I'm always really hesitant when people are like, oh my God, how have you not seen this? I'm like, oh, I probably won't like it.
girl,
I'll give RoboCop a chance for you.
there are some moments in RoboCop that you're going to shriek out loud. I promise you. Because you're just going to be like, I can't believe that they were allowed to do that. Like,
I'll find a way to watch it. I'm sure it's somewhere.
oh God, I'm so excited. Yes, please tell me when you see it, because I just like, that is like probably one of my favorite movies ever. And I'm not, not ironically, like completely
if someone
sincerely.
wants to pay me to watch it through Spoil Me, just saying.
Me and Jamie can co-host it together.
We can schedule it. I'll schedule myself off that day so I can record during the day.
Whee! But yeah, okay. So sorry, I interrupted to talk about how they were RoboCoping.
Well, we can get to the second scene of the show since we're like a half an hour in and we haven't talked about more than the first scene.
All right. So second scene is basically how much Mickey doesn't matter to anybody.
Oh, poor Mickey.
He's been left holding this button down this whole time. Because the doctor just plumb forgot that he told him to do that. And
I know.
It's such a mean scene.
I don't think it's meant to be mean. Like, I don't think the doctor forgot on purpose.
I don't think he did either. That's what's mean about it, Jamie. Because that's how little, like, if the doctor had been purposefully doing something to humiliate him, that means that he matters enough for the doctor to set out to humiliate him.
Aww.
But this is, you matter so little to me that I literally forgot about you completely. That's fucking brutal.
I feel really bad for Mickey.
Ugh.
Being that person, and I don't know if you've ever been, not the extreme that Mickey is here, but when you're like the third wheel, and it doesn't even need to be like in a romantic sense, but like if you've ever had two close friends, but they're better friends with each other.
Yeah. And
you're like, yeah, totally. At their jokes or whatever, and you're like, I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I'm just left out here in the cold. It's a horrible feeling. Especially when you like try and laugh like you know the joke, but the two of them are perfectly aware that you can't know what the joke is. So you are just embarrassing yourself extra by then, because we all know what's really happening here, that you don't understand what we're talking about. I can always bring things back to Friends. There's in season 9 or 10, Ross is dating Aisha Tyler. She plays another paleontologist, or Joey is dating her first, and she and Ross are laughing about something, and Joey laughs, and they're like, "What are you laughing at?" He's like, "I'm just trying to see what it's like to be a paleontologist. It's fun." I think that's how Mickey feels. Oh, what is it like to be a space traveler? I don't understand your stories.
Yeah, and they're telling the story, and like, worst thing to me, worst manners, I guess, is the doctor not telling him the story. He's like, I'm going to talk about it at length in front of you and how funny it was. But then when you ask what it's about, I'm just going to say you had to be there and not explain.
Yeah.
Which, like, that's just rude. You know what? If you're not going to explain it, then don't talk about it in the first place. That's just where you should be.
As we've established, this doctor is rude.
He's very rude. So then they crash. Mm-hmm. And it ends with, like, the crash ends with the doctor being like, the TARDIS is extinct. And I'm like, get out of here. Of course it's not extinct. What are you even doing? And Rose, more than anybody, is just like, we'll be able to fix it. And he's like, nope. Last one ever. It's clearly beyond my reach. It's over. And I'm like, dude, you are being really, like, fatalistic about this thing when you've come back before.
He says, we fell out of the vortex, through the void, into nothingness. We're in some sort of no place. The silent realm. The lost dimension. Mickey opens the door and says, otherwise known as London. Just pretty funny.
True. There's nothing to fix. She's perished. The last TARDIS in the universe. Extinct. Dude, calm down.
At least he doesn't perform it like that.
Yeah, it's
At least
true.
he didn't turn into Barty Crouch Jr.
And yeah, it looks like they're London, except that there's blimps everywhere.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, not a terrible change. You know, once we find out what they're for, then sure.
Yeah.
But at the moment, seems pretty rad. I wonder if...
I am fascinated by Zeppelins. I know they tried to get that to be a thing. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, the Empire State Building or something was supposed to be, like, a Zeppelin landing pad.
Was it? It was
something
very
like that.
sharp. Wouldn't it pop them?
I don't know if it was that building or not. Pop them. But I think one of the, like, tall buildings in New York, like, one of the purposes was to be able to, like, it doesn't land on it. It still, like, hovers, mm-hmm. but latch it on like a boat, I guess. But then the Hindenburg happened, and they're like, well, that's enough of those.
Yeah. I'm sorry. The Hindenburg. I made some...
Jason worked for Ghost Hunters, and they investigated that site.
Did they?
Yeah. And he was like, some weird fucking shit happened in the building where, like, it's like a Navy base or something. And out on the grounds, it was one thing, but, like, in that building, he was like, there's definitely something fucked up there. They heard stuff, and, yeah, it was weird.
Did it go ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk?
Yes, exactly.
So they step outside, and the first thing that they see is an ad with Rose's dad on it.
Yeah.
And he's, like, wearing these things on his ears, and I definitely thought that he was going to be a robot man. That this world had already been taken over by robot men, and that he was going to be, you know, like, half Tin Man, half human man.
Huh.
But it turns out that they're just, like, these ear pods, and it really kind of is weird that he's wearing them in, like, his ad campaign. It's like just wearing
everybody's
your
wearing
Bluetooth headset in an ad. He's sort of like the ShamWow guy who has that headset on all the time. Like he's talking to this huge audience that isn't even there.
ShamWow.
Do you know what I'm talking about, though? Like,
yes.
I always found that guy, like, a really interesting example of, like, the kind of marketing that shouldn't work, and yet he made it work because he was very convincing.
He was really over the top.
Yeah, you know, but, like, still, you would be riveted. Oh, look at all that water coming out of there.
Need to get these towels.
You know, and he'd say something like, oh, the Germans designed these, and you know they always make good stuff. Just, like, little things like that he would say that I was just like, how Nope, but it worked. But yeah, so her dad is apparently like successful, and of course she wants to go see him, and of course she must not do that, and of course she goes and does that anyway.
Sure.
Which, is both understandable and frustrating. I would have been much more worried about running into the other version of myself than she seems to be.
Well, she does, like, get internet access on her phone and basically Googles herself and finds out there's no version of her.
Yeah, that's true. She finds that out before she ever, like, starts to head over there. So that's true. Which Mickey does not do, to his detriment.
Yes.
And we cut from there to her parents, who live in this insane estate. And he comes in with flowers that are like kind of cheap and crappy from his secretary for her birthday, her 39th birthday. Bless her.
She was born on the same day as Cuba Gooding Jr., and he is 39. That's what she said in her autobiography.
What a weird person to pick. Like, if you're going to pick somebody that you were born on the same day, you just, like, I mean, I guess she wants to keep the same birthday.
Yeah.
So you just look up, like, born on this day, and then you have to find somebody very famous of the same year. So I guess,
well,
or
the
whatever
year
year
you
you're
want.
choosing. Right.
Yeah.
So I guess there's probably, like, not a ton of choice when it comes right down to it, but, like, still, there's probably some. But yeah.
Is anybody famous born on your birthday?
I don't know. I've never checked. You?
Oh, yeah. Martin Scorsese, Danny DeVito, one of Belle Biv DeVoe. I can't remember one. Ronnie DeVoe.
One of Belle Biv DeVoe. I'm looking at the actual year to see what was going on. Popular baby names. How old are you in dog years? This site is awesome. Let's see.
I don't want to know.
Famous October 1st birthdays. Giovanni Battista Siri. Do you know him?
No.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a cellist from 1724. So I guess you wouldn't. This is who you give me? Come on. Mike Pringle, American Canadian football player. What is this? The C-list?
Nobody good was born on your birthday.
Mark Svets, Estonian footballer. What is happening? All right, I'm out of here.
I used to think I got like the short end of the stick because it was like, oh, Danny DeVito. I mean, he's all right. I like Danny DeVito. That's pretty good, actually.
Famous birthdays. Danny DeVito's a good one.
Yeah.
Let's see who we got. Oh, all of these are young people who are new stars that I don't know of. Julie Andrews. Ooh, that's a good one. Hi.
There you go. That's a good one.
Everybody
that's a really
else
good
is
one.
Like Jimmy Carter. Oh, I forgot. I knew that. I knew Jimmy Carter was. Zach Galifianakis.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, these are all like fucking chill. Like, people, when you watch like, the Kids' Choice Awards, like you don't watch it, but you see it pop up on your timeline. And there's all these pictures and you're like, I don't know who any of these people are.
That's when I realized I'd gotten old.
Yeah, that's what's happening here, is that this is a lot of people who look like they're 10 years younger than me. And they're being presented as if I should definitely know who they are, because they're not even like really labeled clearly. Richard Harris, who played Dumbledore.
Oh, there you go.
Brie Larson. Oh, shit. Got Captain Marvel over here.
Oscar winner, Brie Larson.
I like that. Insert. Can we say that about me, even though I didn't? Can we insert that in front of my name? I just like the formality of saying it always.
Oscar winner, birthday companion, Natasha Winters.
I spat. There's a lot of people on this list, though, that I don't know who they are. So, oh yeah,
Brie Larson's a good one, though. She's a badass.
Yeah, she is. So I'll go with that and Julie Andrews and Jimmy Carter. Those are good ones.
Yeah.
Henry III of England. Walter Matthau. Okay, I'll hold on to that one. Okay, I'm out. But I did want to know how old I was in dog years, and I didn't find out.
Oh, you can do that later. You're too old. You don't really want to know that. It's going to make you feel terrible.
Or it'll make me feel wise.
It'll make you feel like, oh, if I were a dog, I'd be dead.
But I'm not a dog.
That's true.
So it's like, haha, dogs. You suck. Look at how much better I am not being dead and all. Anyway, okay. So
Ooh, took a turn.
Her mom is kind of like a spoiled brat, really.
Mm-hmm.
She's really nasty about his secretary, like, getting her flowers. Like, come on. The woman remembered your birthday, and you really are not somebody she should be remembering. So the fact that she did that deserves some commendation. But, yeah.
I find that this is not a surprising turn for Jackie.
No.
Like, yeah, it makes sense. If Jackie were rich, yeah, I buy it.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, this is really like, you know, one of those nature versus nurture things where it's like, if I was born rich, what would I be like? I might be fucking terrible. I like to think of myself as empathetic and generous and whatever. But, like, what if I was born without stuff? Maybe I wouldn't be. Maybe I would just be really, like, horribly entitled and self-centered and, you know, more so than I am now. That would be a real wake-up call.
Well, but it wouldn't, because you wouldn't realize that there was any other way to be. You just think that, you know...
When I say a wake-up call, it'd be more like if I wound up in the parallel universe where I saw that, you know? I'd be like, is that potential there for me to be this way?
Sure. I think so. For everyone. Their parallel universe person is the worst of us. Unless we're terrible, and maybe then they're the best. I don't know.
Oh, no. Jamie, I just thought of something way worse. What if you went to a parallel universe and there was a version of you that was, like, way better? Like, not better, like, necessarily, like, richer or whatever. Just, like, a much more gentle, patient, good person who obviously, like, went out of their way to help others in a way that you, like, always thought about and patted yourself on the back for even considering, even though you never did any of it.
I feel personally attacked. I would hate that person. Like, that person would make me hate me, and I don't want to hate me.
That's exactly it, right? It would suddenly, you'd be like, and especially if they came from, like, a more humble background than the one that you come from in your world, and they still manage to be, like, better than you. And you just be like, and then you'd realize that, like, you couldn't make excuses anymore, and maybe you just made some bad choices. Wow.
Why don't you go write that book and make everybody feel terrible? It actually would be a good book. Just write it.
Yeah, well. So yeah, they're planning her giant birthday party. And she gets these ear pods that have, like, diamonds in them, which is hilarious to me. It
can get a signal from Venezuela.
Right? And he's like, why would you want that? Well, I don't know. I guess I'll find out now that I can actually hear Venezuela, which I think is a reasonable answer.
You won't understand what they're saying, but sure.
And she calls out for Rose, and who should appear but this little Yorkshire Terrier, who is adorable, also probably very stinky. Those dogs are really cute, I think, because they look a lot like Ewoks, but also they smell bad.
Do they?
Yeah. They get very oily.
Huh.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of little dogs. Like, they're all cute, don't get me wrong, but I've never wanted a little dog.
I have.
I like big dogs.
I like Pomeranians because they're basically like cats. And I like cats more than dogs.
Greyhounds because they're basically like cats.
Greyhounds?
They sleep all day. They're so lazy. I think, well, the only greyhounds I've ever known have been rescue greyhounds, so they spent the early parts of their lives having to run.
So you're talking about behaviorally. I'm talking about, like, in looks. 'Cause it's like a greyhound and a cat. Unless you have a hairless cat, in which case I guess.
No. It's just greyhounds are like, They're awesome. If I was ever going to have a big dog, I would rescue a greyhound because they're real easy.
They're too nervous.
They're very nervous.
They're always so shaky. I can't handle dogs that are shaking all the time. Owen's grandma
And
has
yet-
a Chihuahua who looks like he's having a nervous breakdown every time we come over.
Chihuahuas do that.
You know, you just want to wrap him in a blanket and like put him in a quiet room and be like, it's going to be okay. But that's just how he is all the time. And even when you
the one
pet
that
him,
posted the video of the greyhound running around in the snow?
I don't think so.
Oh my god! I
I
need to
post an
find that and share
awful
it
lot
with
of
you.
animal videos, Jimmy. I can't be expected to keep track of all of them.
This dog's like living its best life, and it's wearing these little boots, running around in the snow in a sweater. It's really great.
Oh, it's pretty cute. So then we cut to a phone call that her dad is getting, Pete is getting through his ear pods. And it's Madman McGee over here with his fucking eyes talking about how they're going to meet with the president and you need to be here. And he's like, yeah, except, you know, it's like my wife's birthday, which I just said. And he's like, no, I don't really care. Did I ask you what you were doing? I said to be here. I did not ask for further information. So he is going to go, evidently. And meanwhile, his wife, who has her new ear pods, goes up to do herself up for her party. And all of a sudden, the ear pods connect above her head with this static blue light. And she drops her brush and zones out. And the next thing she knows, there are all kinds of ads for makeup brushes showing up on her Facebook feed. And her robe, but in red, is being posted everywhere.
Yeah, that is so annoying. I bought something on ModCloth, and now I see ads for the thing I bought.
Mm-hmm.
But I bought it. Why are you showing me ads for it?
Yep. I've had that happen many times. I just mark it as irrelevant. I think now they have an option that you can say already bought.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when you mark it. Because I mark all of my ads because I get very irritated. But yeah, it's, I mean, have you had that shit happen where you just were talking about something? You didn't even search for it and it shows up?
Did you see my post the other day where I said I was watching TV and they mentioned Coq au vin on TV, and then I saw an ad the next day on my Facebook feed for New York Times food, whatever, and it was for a recipe for Coq au vin, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
That's creepy.
Yeah.
I had it happen. We were like playing a game, and some of Owen's friends, we were talking about like jewelry, and one of his friends was like, oh yeah, I got this weird candle from somebody, and once you like burn it to the bottom, there's a ring in the bottom, and it's actually a really pretty ring. And I was like, that's a weird idea. Okay. And we talked about it for a few minutes. I didn't have my phone open or anything, and then I picked up my phone like 20 minutes later, and the first thing I saw was an ad for candles with rings in them. And I had never had an ad like that ever in my life.
Yeah,
and it was just a really creepy moment where it's like, I know that you guys are like up in my shit and listening, but it's one thing to like have that when you're picking up information from browser history, and it's another thing that you're clearly listening to conversations in the room. You know, like it's a whole other deal. And, you know, I'm sure at some point that I clicked yes on some agreement that they could listen to my private conversations, and I never noticed because I don't read that shit. But still, don't do that. But they do that.
Yeah, Jason said it's because of using the Facebook app. Like, he uses Facebook by going to his Safari app and just pulling it up that way. But he said when you use the app, that he's pretty sure they're listening.
That's creepy. Well,
yeah. But I think it also, if you've got any Facebook-owned app on your phone, so Instagram, they're listening.
Yeah. And I mean, if you've tried using Safari for Facebook on your phone, it's fucking awful.
Yeah, it is.
Like, it's really you know what? If it's a choice between those two things, then I guess listen, because I'm not going to fucking deal with that. But yeah, so he takes all of like her information about her party and what the passwords are going to be to get in, which is like really kind of funny because he's asking all this info, like encryption services and everything. But then later they just like bust in through the glass windows. It's not like he's being sneaky. He doesn't, unless he's going to do something later, because this is a 2-parter and we haven't gotten there yet. But as of right now, he takes a bunch of information that he doesn't seem to have intended ever to use at all.
Yeah, what is the information that he takes?
I'll read you what he just says this second, because it's like, okay, so, boop, boop, boop. Download Tyler residence, February the 1st. Give me security arrangements for tonight. Passwords, encryption services. And let's see. And then there's a pause.
Maybe he got that because you know how they show up at the end. Maybe that's why.
How they show up at the end?
Like, he gets all of their information. He knows all of these. He knows the guest list of the party.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, but wouldn't the guest list be kind of like public record? I feel like when you're a socialite, everybody knows who's invited where. Because it's like a whole... Well, it doesn't matter. He just gets a bunch of information. And it's meant to let us know that he can, like, get into her brain and make her stop moving, even if he wants to.
Yeah, I hate that. That's way scarier than the Cybermen.
Yeah, right? Like, this is just so much more... It's much more like, what if phones, but too much. It's a Black Mirror-esque sort of idea. And then he starts talking to this guy, Mr. Crane, who sounds very much like Michael Caine. And
you're right. I totally thought that too.
Yeah, it was just like, I kept thinking, is it? And then I would have to like, check again and be like, no. But yeah, he's apparently like the new head of science. I want to say sciences, but like, this is not science. This is like a thug. Guy's like a friggin' thug. And he is picking
his thing
up
is called
the people.
Cybus Industries, and like it seems like they're just in control of these earpods and phones, but really they're in charge of a lot more than that. And I don't know why he has the ear of the president of Great Britain.
I mean, what happens when you become that big? Like, I feel like Amazon has to have the ear of the prime minister, right? I feel like that's probably a thing.
I don't know.
Amazon is the giant evil corporation that I, support. I do. I buy Kindle books. I buy everything on Amazon. It's like one of those things that I'm just like, I really need to like figure out another way to live. That's
there
the
isn't
thing.
another way to live anymore.
It's like, it's such an enormous shift if you want to like divorce this from your life. And I can't even like, there are certain things, even for the podcast, I literally can't find these shows anywhere else to watch. I'm watching fucking Doctor Who on Amazon Prime right now because it's the only place that I could find it, that I didn't have to like buy it.
Used to be on Netflix, but yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so they, and it, later on we find out that like this company owns a bunch of other stuff as well. So there's things that like you can sort of tell yourself that they're not involved, but they are a subsidiary of, which
like
is also
Pete's
a real
company.
true thing. Yeah, exactly.
Like what? This guy owns something called Vitex. Like it's vitamin drinks. So why is he connected with this guy? And why does the president even know who he is? You're just a regular old business guy.
Yeah, I was like, so the president seems to recognize him from his ads, but it doesn't seem like he knows him. When they meet, they're clearly meeting for the first time.
But then he goes to Jackie's party.
Yeah, maybe he knows Jackie.
I'm friends with your socialite wife.
Maybe she's like...
Maybe she's friends with the First Lady of Great Britain.
There you go. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Vitex has some stuff in it that makes you, more susceptible to being turned into a robot man.
I was literally going to just say that.
Yeah, maybe it's like it's full of like nanobots or something. You think that's carbonation, but really it's just nanobots jumping around in your mouth.
Oh, well, now you're just making more terrible ideas.
I love my terrible ideas. I need somebody to take notes on all of my terrible ideas and save them so that I can go over them once we're done with this series, and I'll just be like, wow, that was a weird idea I fucking had.
You could be like such a horrifying sci-fi writer if you really wanted to.
I could. And the thing is, like, I don't think I have it in me to like sit down and really like write a 1,000-word scene about nanobots jumping around in your mouth. So I think I'd have to just be like the ideas guy. I'd be the ghost writer, and I'd be like, and now this scene happens, but I'm not doing it. And somebody else.
You're not the ghost writer. Somebody else is actually the ghost writer.
What's the person who writes like the overview, and then you give it to somebody else to like write the actual scene?
Do those people have a name?
I thought they did. I thought that was what a ghost writer was.
The ghost writer is the one who actually writes the book, and then somebody else's name gets put on it.
Oh, ew. No, I don't like that.
Yeah, it's like but many like celebrities with their memoirs are written by someone else. They just dictated it. And someone else actually wrote it so that it's, makes sense and doesn't have a bunch of spelling errors and flows well. And that's a ghostwriter.
So I'd be like,
you'd be that person
writer.
Being like, okay, so this is what I want. These are my ideas. Now you write it.
Yeah, pretty much.
You'd be a dictator.
That sounds right.
Actually the right term.
That's messed up, Jamie. What are you trying to say?
That if you were given absolute power, it would be a
Nobody
bad
wants
thing.
that. I don't even want that. I can't even manage my bank account. So, okay. We have then the doctor, and he's hanging out with Mickey, and Rose is outside, sitting by the river, apparently being left to her own devices, even though we all know that she's a fucking flight risk, but okay. And she's sitting there with her phone and winds up getting hooked up to the internet via these zeppelins floating around above her. And I believe this is when we do briefly jump into Mickey and the doctor talking together and him saying we're not meant to be here. The TARDIS draws its power from the universe, but we're in the wrong universe. Like a petrol car getting diesel put into it. Which I thought was an interesting analogy.
Yeah, it works. Like it makes sense to, people who don't understand space travel.
Yeah. And he talks about how it used to be easy to jump between dimensions, but now because the Time Lords all died, that the worlds were sealed against each other.
Yeah.
And they can't be opened as easily as they used to be, which is a weird idea. Doesn't seem really fair that the Time Lords had that kind of knowledge and that they could just die and then it's gone.
But do we really want to jump between universes?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Imagine a universe, Jamie, where Trump wasn't elected. What the hell are you talking about? Do we really want to go to another universe? I would go to any other universe.
What is it that Anya says? That there's universes that are just shrimp. There's universes where there's no shrimp.
I forgot about that. Oh, Anya.
She's the best.
Everything became that bit less kind. And Mickey says, well, then how did we get here? And he says, I don't know, accident. But since it's supposed to be impossible, the fact that we're here means that we're pretty much trapped. And then he gets distracted because he sees something. And it's a tiny little crystal that is still aglow with a bit of energy. And the doctor blows 10 years of his life into it to wake it up.
I give you air from my lungs.
how very intimate. And we cut then to our thug guy who is capturing a bunch of dudes for this experiment.
Yes.
And it's a really, like, weird... They roll out this ramp to get up on the truck, and he's talking about, do you smell that? Burgers and chips and sausage and beans and hot sweet tea and all this stuff. And these guys are, like, clearly starving to death and are jumping on this truck because there are no other options for them at this moment. And yet... And I'm going to watch this to get to really nail down exactly how this happens. But they really show their hand before they drive away.
Yeah.
That there's no food on this truck. And
everybody starts screaming.
Yeah. I'm like, why don't y'all just wait a second to drive away and then deal with this so that we don't all hear the screaming and know that that's not what's going on in there.
I don't think they're real concerned about hiding.
I guess not. And yeah, somebody, no, help! And then they close the truck, and meanwhile, this dude is filming the whole thing.
Yes. That dude's name is Jake.
Jake, thank you. So it turns out later that these dudes they get these, like, pods inserted in their ears that look like the pods that everybody else has. But apparently it's, like, the first step in a whole other system.
So these pods, which everybody wears,
mm-hmm.
and somehow has access to your thoughts, and can make you stop on the street when there's the daily download happening.
Mm-hmm.
Do they, like, hook into the brain?
That's what it feels like they're saying.
And everybody just willingly did this, except for these people, Jake's people.
Yeah.
Well, you guys are way too trusting in this universe, because I wouldn't be putting those things in my ears.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that it's like... And you know, I understand the conceit of doing this on a show where you just, like, want to have this technology already in place when you start a story. But it is jumping so much from one extreme to another, where you expect me to believe that nobody, like, questioned this or nobody had a problem with this.
Well, we fortunately do meet some people who have a problem with it.
They have a problem with it, but we didn't see the origin of this. And it seems like out of fucking all of London, there's like 4 people.
Yes.
You know, so that's the thing that I'm kind of just like, how, first of all, what kind of FCC regulations are going on here? What kind of, like, human studies were done on the effects of this? The fact that they can tap into change, like, to altering your actual, like, movements and behavior feels like a giant fucking red flag that somebody should have picked up on, that could happen, and it should have been brought to a halt before it ever got to this point. And
well, in a universe where this Cybus company is so powerful that it has the ear of presidents and politicians worldwide, or at least Europe-wide. And I don't know, and then, like, has its hands in everything else too. It seems like it's one of those things where people are kind of sheep and they just follow, like, oh, well, yeah, everybody's doing this. This is what we do now.
I guess.
I mean, I get what you're saying.
That I totally don't buy that this could happen, because I'm not even saying that. I bet it could.
Yeah, it totally could, and that's what's terrifying. I mean, look at how much we rely on technology now, and we don't question it.
And I'm not willing to use the Safari browser version of Facebook because it's really inconvenient. So I'll let them listen to my conversations instead.
Yeah, see?
But,
so it's totally possible that, here, stick these things in your ears. You never have to take them out. They hook in and you get all your news just downloaded right into your brain, which I've joked about, like, God, I wish I could just get that movie downloaded right in my brain right now. But I don't actually want that. I
have to say, I think that my main problem with this is who looks at anything that a man with Barty Crouch's face created and is like, this all seems up and up. Yeah, no problems here.
Yeah, well, you would be on Ricky Smith's team.
I definitely would. Yeah, I wouldn't. I'd be one of those people on the street pausing going, ha ha ha, funny joke. That's a good one. And then moving on with my day. Anyway. So these guys get all collected and put in the back of this truck, get those things stuck in their ears. And then later, once they've confirmed that this will work, they get turned into Cybermen, who are hilarious. And then we have the president meeting Pete, saying, I tried that Vitex stuff. It tastes like pop. It is pop. You've made money by selling a health food drink to a sick world. Not quite the ordinary Joe you appear to be, are you? Which I'm like, that's a weird way of saying that. I guess he's being diplomatic. But I want to know more about this drink as well, because he's saying it's a health food drink, but then he says, well, it is pop. And pop is not a health drink. So, and he's not like abashed saying, well, it is pop. He says it like, well, obviously, like we all know that's what it is. And I'm like, so what's the gimmick exactly? Like, I just want to know more about what, he says is happening versus what we all know is happening, or versus what science says is, you know what I'm saying about this product?
Yeah.
I just want to know more about that.
Well, maybe what we're learning is everybody in this version of Britain are real dumb and willing to believe anything that's told to them.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Maybe they only drink Vitex because it gets downloaded into their brains that they want Vitex.
Maybe.
How creepy
Maybe
would
it
that
makes
be?
them compliant.
Have you watched that 15 Million Merits?
No.
Grrr. It's an episode of Black Mirror.
Oh, I haven't seen any Black Mirror yet.
That's right. I remember we talked about this, and I was basically like, yeah, you should see Black Mirror, but also, like, don't bother.
It's on our list. I said something yesterday about, like, oh, Friday Night Lights is on Amazon. Now we can watch that. And Jason's like, sure, after we finish Justified and watch Black Mirror, and you finally watch the OA like I've been asking you to do, and then we can finish.
I have to tell you that if you're going to watch Black Mirror, you don't fucking binge it. Don't do that.
No.
Don't do, and make sure that he is aware that that's like a bad idea. Please let him know that I said this.
We don't really binge much. We usually watch like 1 or 2 episodes of something.
Watch one, give yourself a week, then watch another one. I'm not kidding. I'm not exaggerating. Like, they are a fucking bummer, and it's going to be too much.
Okay.
Promise.
I promise.
We'll
have to pair that with Friday Night Lights.
What's that?
We'll have to pair it with Friday Night Lights. We'll watch Black Mirror and then watch Friday Night Lights so we can feel happy and cry.
It's there's like a couple episodes of Black Mirror, especially newer ones, that actually do have a somewhat uplifting ending. But they're I can name them because there are so few of them that I know exactly which ones they are. But 15 Million Merits is one of, I think, the better episodes of any show I've ever seen ever.
Huh.
And there is a drink in that episode called Compliance.
Huh.
Show's not subtle. Anyway, so we go to Mickey, who has decided that he is going to take off and do his own thing, and sort of dares the doctor to like come after him instead of Rose, because Rose is also going to go do her own thing.
I know, poor Mickey.
And he's just like, you're not going to come after me. And he sort of stands there like, prove me wrong, buddy. And the doctor's like, oh, fine, you win, and goes after Rose because that's what he do.
Mm-hmm.
And Mickey goes on to the estate, the block that he lives on.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like a curfew and there's like military presence outside.
Yeah, they never explain that.
Yeah. And he gets let in, and we hear him, like his history told to us by Rose.
Yeah. As
he's heading over there, she's talking to the doctor about what happened with him. And I like that the doctor's like, oh, I didn't know any of that. And she's like, yeah, you didn't ask. But yeah, it turns out that he had this grandmother that brought him up, and that she died in like a terrible accident where she fell down some stairs.
And we kind of get that too when he's talking to her, and in this universe, she's got the same like tear in her carpeting, which sounds like that tripped her, and that's how she fell.
Yeah, and he gets really emotional about it and says something like, you promised me that you were going to get that fixed. And she says, well, why don't you fix it for me? And he says, I should have. I guess I'm kind of useless. And I was like, oh, why are you saying this, Mickey? You're breaking my fucking heart, guy. Don't do this.
I know.
And then apologizes to her. And of course, she doesn't know that this is a different, because she says that his name is Ricky, which is just so funny.
Yeah.
And then when he apologizes, she's just like, you don't have to apologize. I was just worried about you. It's been days, and I know that you've been running off with those people in that van. And it's a really emotional, sweet scene, and I was so mad that it got interrupted.
Yeah, and he gets, like, kidnapped.
Mm-hmm. He gets grabbed by the people in that fucking van.
Yep.
And they're like, we've been looking for you. What the fuck? And turns out they haven't been looking for him. They've been looking for Ricky.
Yeah.
So, and later on, when he actually meets Ricky, apparently their histories are like almost identical in terms of like who their parents were. Because, you know, he says like, my dad did this for work. And I was kind of waiting for Ricky to interrupt and be like, my dad didn't do that. He did this. But it seems like it's almost exactly the same.
Mm-hmm. Dad did this, ran off to Spain.
Yeah, exactly. And he's just like, so what, are we brothers then? And one of the guys is like, well, obviously, what other explanation is there? And he's like, we're not like, it's not like we just bear a striking resemblance to each other. We look exactly the same. This can't just be. And one of the women is just like, well, maybe they've been practicing building clones. And I'm like, yeah, you know, that would really make the most sense. If I didn't know what was happening, I would assume that was what was being done.
Mm-hmm.
But it turns out that they are like the resistance who is going to try and take down Barty. And they don't know exactly what's being done, it feels like. They've got like a vague idea.
They know something bad is happening, but I don't think they know robots or Cybermen. They're not robots.
Yeah. And then we have that scene where Rose and the doctor are in the street and everybody stops. And she's able to open her phone and see like what's going on because it all downloads automatically to her phone also. But yeah, it's an unnerving scene. Like, are people aware that they come to a complete and total dead stop?
I don't know.
And what happens when you're driving and this happens?
Right?
Like, that feels like a fucking hazard. You know? Just roll
Maybe
on
they have
into a crowd of
self-driving
people.
cars.
Maybe. Yeah. That would make sense. But yeah, and the moment where it says joke and then they all start laughing, that was really creepy. I liked it. Lottery numbers. I don't want that fucking junk in my brain. Give me something good.
Yeah.
Tell me a weird fact. You know, something about like marine biology or something. You know what I mean? Give me a little factoid. Yeah. What makes a factoid versus a fact?
I think a factoid is shorter. Just a little quick fact.
Huh, okay. I always thought that it had to be something like whimsical. But like when I think about it, I'm like, you know, when I think of factoid, I think of something that's like kind of questionable. Like you're not really sure that's true. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind of
it's
thing.
Like half fact.
Yeah, the kind of thing that you like got from a meme. And when you start to say it out loud, you're like, oh, actually, now that I say this out loud, maybe that's nothing. That's a factoid. You know? I don't know. Anyway.
Factoid, right. Another word for lie.
Yeah, exactly. Alternative fact. So, okay. We have the meeting with fucking Barty and the president. I can't get over this guy. guys, I really can't. Like, who's listening to this man? How does he have any sort of power at all? Where did he get his money from? And who's giving him equipment?
I don't know.
It's like he shouldn't be allowed, is my point.
Doesn't the president tell him to go try Germany?
Yeah, my government does not give you permission. Oh, I think no government ever will. And later on, I think it's Pete who says it's not the only country. There's always New Germany.
Right. And he says, no, this is the land of my birth.
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
No, it's a one-time deal.
Because that was almost exactly what he sounded like.
He's just so, like, over-dramatic about everything.
Are they trying to do, because, like, you know, they have it essentially that he seems completely paralyzed?
He is paralyzed, or he's in a wheelchair.
Yeah. I feel like they're trying to do
he's dying.
a what do you call it? Like, comparison here. Oh my god, what is the name of the famous, like,
What, Stephen Hawking?
Yeah.
Nah.
No? Am I just drawing that
Stephen
parallel?
Hawking, I mean, maybe because of the wheelchair, but Stephen Hawking was like, he wasn't, well, evil, first of all,
well,
but
no, yes.
He also, like, his disease was so degenerative. And this guy's still, like, able to speak and whatever. He just happens to be in a wheelchair. Like, he doesn't look like he's dying.
No, except for, like, the gas mask that he puts on every now and then, which, like, we don't know that he needs that gas mask. He could just be doing this to try and garner some sympathy for his project, for all we know.
It's just a Morton Joe over there.
Do not become addicted to metal. So, yeah, the president is just like, when he says, you don't understand, I'm dying. And he's like, no, I definitely understand. And really, nobody cares. Because everybody dies and you're kind of terrible. So we're all just sort of waiting you out, to be honest. He doesn't say that, but that's really the feeling that I get.
It doesn't work out so well for him.
It does not. He gets zapped. Spoilers.
Spoilers for this episode.
Indeed. So let's go to the freaking party, shall we? I feel like we've talked about everything else leading up to that. Where Rose is staff.
Well, they both are.
Yes.
And she's like, why couldn't you use your psychic paper to make us guests of the party? And he's like, because people don't pay attention to the staff. So they talk around them. You'll get more information from the staff if you're one of them. Which,
I'm not sure how much I believe that, but I'm willing to let it go.
I think if you're at a fancy party and you're one of the people going around with champagne, you get snippets of conversation. You can sort of linger and not be real obvious.
Yeah, that's probably true. So yeah, they're walking around while her father gives a toast for his wife's 39th birthday. And it's actually kind of charming. You find out that he's moved out later.
Yeah.
But they do have a vibe to them, like they still get along in their way, even despite the tension in the scene with them earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And when he talks to Rose about it, he's like, clearly got some regrets. But she then, like, talks to her mother and really does take it too far.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like the way that her mother reacted was completely appropriate. She's like, are you trying to talk to me about my marriage? Who the fuck do you think you are? You're just staff, and you're definitely not getting paid now. And not for nothing, Rose, but you don't know why he moved out.
Yeah. She
tells her mom, like, well, he deserves a second chance. How do you know?
Well, Rose does these sort of stupid things when it comes to her mom and her dad, where she, like, forgets where she is and who she is, and starts talking to Jackie like it's Jackie.
Right.
And this isn't your Jackie, and that's not your dad.
Mm-hmm.
And she just so desperately wants her dad and her mom
Yeah.
That she, like, forgets, like, everything. All logic, all sense just flies out the window, and suddenly she's Rose talking to Mom, and that's not the case.
Yeah.
So she deserved the smackdown.
Mm-hmm.
Jackie was harsh, but correct.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, out of context, like, we know who Rose is, and that she's, like, talking to this guy about his wife having kids, potentially, because she wants to be born in this universe. But, like, really, when you think about her being like, well, she's not too old for kids, and, like, being really pushy about it, it just feels like, who the fuck is this lady still trying to get this other woman to have children? What is your problem? Like,
yeah,
back off, lady, you know?
Like, it's a different universe, Rose. It's okay that they decided not to have you.
Mm-hmm.
Because maybe there's another universe somewhere else where they had 5 of you. And then what are you going to do?
Right.
Then you're going to be upset that you're not the only one.
And maybe if you hung out with these people a little longer, you'd realize that them not having kids was a really smart decision on their part.
Yes. And also that these are not your parents.
Yes, right. Exactly. Oh, hey, honorable mention to Mickey being scanned for bugs in his boxer briefs tied to a chair.
Yeah.
What's up, Mickey?
Not bad.
Yo. He has some legs. I'm happy about it.
Yeah, I think he's super cute.
Yeah, he's not really a type that I normally go for because his features are very, like, he always looks angry, vaguely. Do you know what I mean? I think it's he's got those lowering eyebrows.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, that was a good look. I'm a big fan of boxer briefs, like always, though. I got Owen to transition slowly by mysteriously making his regular boxers vanish over time as I did the laundry. Not even kidding. Oh, I don't know. I guess we'll have to go pick some other ones out.
You know how washing machines, like, eat a sock? I guess it just likes your boxers.
Yeah. So they're in the middle of this little party scenario, and the doctor sees this computer sitting by itself. I don't even remember what he finds out from this computer. What does he get from this? Because, like, he goes and, like, investigates, but then we have the actual Cybermen show up, and it feels like whatever he found at this point is kind of irrelevant because we know exactly what's happening now.
Yeah, I don't think that they show it, right? He just suddenly is like, we have to go?
I feel like...
I don't remember what happened. I just watched this 2 days ago. I don't know why I can't remember exactly.
Because he puts his glasses on and leans over the computer like, heh, 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 now I've got you. And it cuts from there to the conversation with Rose and her dad. And when we cut back, let me see. He's like looking at the screen and we have the Cybermen already getting off the truck by the time it cuts back to him. Oh yeah, Lumic, the most precious thing on this earth is the human. He's watching like a video in which Lumic basically like low-key tells everybody exactly what he's going to do, which I don't know where he got this video from. Because I imagine that this isn't on YouTube. So is it supposed to be that, like, this video was for
maybe Pete has it on his private server or something?
Yeah. So yeah, this is, like, basically him getting his, the ultimate upgrade, and he says, Cybus, and runs out of there. But at this point, all of the Cybermen are already headed across the lawn, and Rose, who had been outside talking to her mom, is the first to see them. And he's a little behind because he thinks like, oh, I think I know what's coming, but he doesn't realize that they're like coming to the party. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And they come inside and bash their way through the window and everything and talk about the ultimate upgrade. And the president is like, what if I refuse? And the doctor's like, don't. And he says, but what if I refuse? What happens? And the Cyberman says, then you are not compatible and you will be deleted. And grabs him and zaps him. And then they all start to walk around and grab everybody and zap them.
Yeah, that's the part I didn't understand. Like, I understood them doing it to the president because he was saying no. All these other people start screaming and running around, but that's what everybody does. So
Right.
you should just be grabbing them unless the zapping that they're doing is just knocking them out.
Yeah, I didn't
not
get
killing
that
them.
impression.
I didn't either. It just seems like they're just killing people who are running from them, as if the only way to make more Cybermen is to have people agree to it. But nobody's going to agree to that unless they're forced to.
Right. And it's sort of a weird thing, too, when you see, like, this, you know, Loomis is like, well, you don't understand, I'm dying. And I'm like, well, Loomis, you could have just done this with your own brain then.
Yeah.
And not
Why
say
isn't
anything.
he?
And, like, why do you have to include everybody else in this dumbass idea? But apparently he's just, what's good for the goose is good for every gander.
Except he's not doing it to himself. We don't have any evidence that he's planning on it.
That's true.
Like, you're going to live forever how? By not being a Cyberman? Because you know if you're a Cyberman, then you're just some...
Mindless drone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see, and maybe there's more in the next episode that explains his motivations here, beyond, like, living forever.
I'm just sort of, yeah, well, all right. So he zaps the president, and then all these other people start to go down. They run outside, and Mickey and Ricky and friends are out there with their guns, which do absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And they get surrounded by these things. And the doctor wants to surrender, which we don't really see from him, like, ever.
Yeah.
And they are not having it. And he does not know what to do, because it's obvious he expected that surrendering and agreeing to the upgrade was going to take care of this issue for the nonce. And they are saying that they are going for maximum deletion.
Yeah.
Which is basically like this guy wants to, like, erase humanity from the world, which I don't really understand his motivation with that. But it seems like what he wants to do is just kill everyone.
I guess that's a way to live forever. If nobody's alive, then it doesn't... I don't know. No. There's no logic there, but I guess when you're trying to get logic out of a crazy person...
Yeah, I just don't, like, none of this seems to match up with what he wants, except for him saying, like, well, I took these people who had nothing and gave them eternal life, and they should be thankful to me. But, like, that was never something that he stated as part of his, like, you know, objectives. It was all about him dying. Yeah. And like you said, we haven't seen any evidence that he's going to do this to himself, so I'm not really sure where to go with that.
Well... Luckily, there's a part 2.
Yeah, so it ends with them just being like, delete, 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 delete. Which,
crack me up.
I definitely get in that kind of mood sometimes myself, guys. Let me tell you. And that is the end of the episode.
Yep.
So, I am going to have to wrap this up because you and I talked for too long before we started, and I have a class to get to in 20 minutes.
Oh, my. Well, luckily, we're going to be recording the next part soon, so I will do
now I see the
reviews
teardrop that you were talking about. Yeah. Well, coming off. I thought that the teardrop was like, what's the word? Like a separate from their eye, but it's like attached like a little keyhole.
Yeah.
Yeah, weird. But yeah, because you're going to be away next week.
Yes.
So we're recording a couple days sooner than usual, so I'll get to find out what happens next.
Yep.
Yeah. Is there anything that you want to mention before we wrap it up?
No, I can save all this stuff for the next recording. Just cover reviews and the little bits of trivia. There's only like 2 of them.
Okay. Cool.
Later. Since it's a 2-parter anyway.
And I just want to announce to everybody that for the next patrons only show, I had been doing Black Mirror. I posted the last episode of that yesterday. And we'll be opening it up to $1 and up patrons. Now that it is up in a couple days, I will be making that available to everybody. And the next $5 and up patrons only show is going to be me and Miles reading Twilight. And I am posting the very first episode, episode 0, in which he and I discuss how we're going to talk about it, how spoiled he is, and all of that kind of thing. I'm going to be posting that as available to everyone on Patreon so that you guys can get a sense of it and whether you would want to pledge at $5 to get access to the rest of the episodes. And we are doing the books, and we are doing all 4 of them. So buckle up, kids.
God, that's going to be fun.
It's like we've recorded already on the first 3 chapters and it was super fun. It was really fun. So guys, patreon.com/unspoiled if you would like to get into Twilight with us. And, I'm excited because Miles is like weirdly giddy about it. And
so weird. He really is excited.
He's like turned over this leaf regarding his attitude about stuff where he's like, you know, this false intellectualism that comes from just not liking anything is not legit, and I need to stop it. And I'm going to examine my personal biases and check out this book in good faith and not just like hate read it. So it's pretty adorable. Actually.
Well, I voted for The Stand, and he was very against that. So
he's not against The Stand in principle. It's just that we just did a whole King series, and he's just kind of like side-eyeing Stephen King right now. Really hard.
I get that too. But part of the reason I picked The Stand was because you guys had covered Stephen King together, so I thought it made sense. I love The Stand, but I haven't read it in like 20 years or something, so maybe it doesn't hold up.
Yeah, you said you loved Dirty Jobs, and you hadn't read that in like 5 years, so you know
what?
Well,
it had been about 10 years, and I was very wrong about that. Very wrong.
And probably we will cover The Stand at some point anyway.
I said I would do it because Miles was like, I really don't want to. And
if he doesn't, we'll see. I mean, this is 4 books, so we have a while to go before we're done with this. I can't wait, though. I'm so excited. Like, the last book is just so bonkers, and he's just going to be... Oh, I can't wait.
The last book is really bonkers.
It is, though. He's not ready. And it's so fun with the first
None
few
of
chapters.
us were ready.
He was immediately like, I really like Bella. She's a lot more like... she's willing to call herself out when she's being unreasonable about stuff, and she's very independent. Edward is trash, and nothing's even happened yet, and he hates Edward so much already, and it's so good.
Oh, he'll learn to hate Bella too.
It's so funny. I can't wait. Yeah, anyway, okay. So yeah, guys, patreon.com/unspoiled. Find that. And don't forget to check out our sponsor, Day 11 Podcast, which you can find at day11podcast.com or searching Day 11 Podcast on your podcatcher. And I think that's it, everybody. Thank you all for listening. Leave a review on iTunes if you can. And you can find us on facebook.com/unspoiledpod, Twitter at Unspoiled Show, Instagram at Unspoiled Podcast, and unspoiledpodcast.com. So until next week, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.